And hello, everybody. We are live, hopefully. And I always say hopefully because you never know with these technologies. But I'm here with my friend, Katherine Koroll, who is outside in San Diego. Oh, we are live according to my phone. So let me turn that off. Katherine, hey, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us in sunny San Diego. I'm in still kind of chilly and cloudy New York. Actually, I'm now in upstate New York, as a lot of people have heard, and this is my first Facebook Live for my new home. So you're blessed to be the first guest. So, Katherine, tell everybody a little bit about what you do and how you help people and what you're up to in your life and your entrepreneurial journey right now.
Awesome. And I'm so glad to be here. And congratulations on your new upstate New York home. What a big transition for you. That is so cool.
Yeah, crazy.
So what am I up to? So I am a life coach, and I really support people in getting clear on their vision and taking action to bring it into the world. And I I help people with a lot of underlying things like mindset stuff, emotional stability, and really help them get not only clear on what they want, but then also develop like the confidence and that enoughness to take action on it and actually live it without that creeping self-doubt that always comes in.
Yeah, no.
Anyone that's an entrepreneur knows.
I know we were just chatting a little bit before this, and I was like, oh yeah, tell me about it, because all of us go through it. You know, I keep telling people it's just different levels of it, right? Like what I went through 5 years ago is totally different than what I'm going through now, but there's still, it's like layers of the onion. So I'm just curious. So I know you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and probably a lot of coaches and life coaches and people on this journey. I'm always curious to know, like, what is the number one biggest struggle that people seem to have? Like you already mentioned, not enoughness.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it. It's having this idea and then they have it. It's a spark and it's like almost like an infant of an idea. So it's kind of a little bit delicate at first and a little bit vulnerable. And then this fear ego mind comes in. It's like, that's not good enough. Your idea is not good enough. You don't have enough skills. No one's going to like that. It needs to be better. It needs to be fancier. It needs to be cooler. It needs to be fun. Like all of these sorts of things come in and sabotage it. And what's even worse is sometimes other people will say that too. If you bring this idea to people and then they'll be like, I don't know about that. Or who do you think you are? Is another one.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, oh, you think you're so great because you're going to whatever, have some freedom-based, awesome lifestyle and travel the world.
Yeah.
And then they shut that down. So it's usually like a combination of not enough or too much.
Wow. That's crazy. No, it's so funny because I totally get it. And I feel like I'm constantly talking to clients about this. I actually just wrote an email about this. And, you know, it all comes down to that same thing, like truly believing in yourself and believing in what you're putting out there. And actually, you know, you said it, the ego, you know, like the mind gets in the way of everything. And, you know, the way I always tell people I overcome it, it's kind of like, I just have to put it aside. And I always say mission over ego. Like, even, I know you're doing a 30-day Facebook Live challenge right now, which is one of the reasons I have you. But even I tell people this, like literally on video, I'm like, I hate doing videos. I actually don't love doing these videos. I love talking to people like you, but I don't like doing videos. But I always just put aside the whole video thing, like, oh, video, okay, throw that aside and then just get it out there. Like, put the ego aside and just know that I'm worthy of doing Facebook Lives, just like anybody else, just like, you know, a famous person doing Facebook Live. So how do you help people get through this? Like, what are the tricks to, you know, the struggle of like, you know, I find with a lot of my clients, everybody seems to think it must be perfect before I put it out there.
Yeah.
Which kills me.
So one around that, and you probably heard this, is done is better than perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and also I try to, one of the first things I do is to help them have an awareness about what's going on in their mind and to start watching it and notice that conversation as being a little bit separate and noticing it like you would look at like a child like throwing a temper tantrum or something like that. And for me, what's been really helpful is to develop like a level of humor that goes around with it, that I'm like, oh, mind, you're so hilarious. Like, you're so funny. Look at these things you're saying. I know it's a trick. I know you're just trying to keep me safe, or I know, like, whatever it is. Sort of like you would to a child, like you wouldn't take them, like if a 5-year-old's like throwing a fit, you can acknowledge them and say, oh yeah, I know this is like how you're feeling, and it's coming from this place of being scared, or last time I did this, whatever happened, or something. And kind of treat it like that. Acknowledge, but be like, you're still not driving. Like, I understand that you like really want to drive the car and life isn't fair, or whatever the child is like throwing a tantrum about, but like that's just not happening. Or I want to have like ice cream before bed or something, or like whatever the kid has a problem with. It's the same thing that happens in our minds. And so firstly, to recognize that that's actually what's happening here. It's not truth. Some people take it as being truth and then like act like that, but to create some separation first, because once there's separation and awareness, then we can kind of start to do something about it.
Yeah.
That'd be the first step.
I know it's so true about the awareness, like even the awareness of, like I said, people who think, I must have it be perfect before I bring it to the world. Like I must have my website be shiny and pretty and perfect before I put it out there. And I'm like, no, just put it up. Like, but yeah, you're right. Like this awareness of like, it's almost like this other voice, that you have to step back and separate from. So that's really good. Now, I'm just curious, like, how long does it take people to really break through this? Because I feel like even today, I spoke to I call her my spiritual coach. I don't know. She's technically my therapist, but it's beyond that. But I was like, does this ever end? Because it's just like new levels, new layers. But like, like what happens over time?
So over time, you get better and better at it. So in a way, it kind of doesn't end, because as human beings, we're built to evolve and grow. And that's kind of the purpose of our lives. We're here to do that in like 4 different ways: physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. We're constantly growing and evolving. And so we have this mechanism in us that pushes us to do so. And sometimes that looks like not good enough, therefore move forward. So it's there from like an evolutionary point of view, and will kind of always be there, but it becomes a relationship with that. It's sort of like being like, when am I ever going to abolish my ego? Well, it's never going to happen. So instead, how can I have a relationship with it? How can I have a relationship with this part of my mind that's trying to keep me safe? It's trying to keep me comfortable, and also move me forward in the same way. It's kind of like counterintuitive, but that's what's happening. And how can I work with this to keep going? And one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to also like gather evidence for the better. So to kind of look at it from like a bird's eye view and be like, okay, when, if there's like a lack mentality around, say, resourcefulness, like I never have enough time, energy, money, whatever, confidence, like all these things we want more of, because when we have more of that, then something, you can look back and say, actually, is that true? Like in the past, have I been able to find the money, find the time, find whatever, and like rally and have that happen? And then look back and say, that's really funny that this conversation's still going, even though I proved to myself that I've been able to take care of myself financially for like 15 years. Like, what's going on here? It's just not true.
It's so true.
Yeah,
I know.
It really is
so good. I like literally said something to myself last night where I was like, oh, actually I did do that in the past. So I think I could do it even better. Like why doubt? You're right. It's like, there's evidence. Like we're not homeless.
I know. And then to the perfectionism thing where it's like done is better than perfect. Like, why is that true? Is because our brains trick us into thinking that we can figure out exactly how things are going to go, because it provides us a feeling of like safety and comfort. But if anyone's ever done anything, like no matter how much you think it through, it's really through taking action that we get clarity. Like if anyone's ever done, anything, a sport, an activity, gone on a date, like did a presentation, like you can kind of like think about how it's going to go, but you could never think of how it actually is going to be. You only ever find that out through action. So by allowing your brain to like hold you hostage in this place of analysis paralysis, just isn't isn't useful because it thinks it's going to figure it out, and when things are perfect, like stuff will happen, but it just never will. We learn through doing. Straight up.
I love that you're saying this because I literally just wrote today's email about this sense of, because I've been talking to a lot of people on the phone the last few weeks, and everybody's really saying the same thing, like, oh, not enough time, or now's not the right time, or, oh, it's not, like, I'm not ready. And it's this really, it's this conversation over, like, I have this, but I'm not ready to put it out there because it's not perfect. And, like, there's this sense of like wanting to know how everything's going to work. But then if you don't take any actions and everything's just kind of in your head and you're thinking about it and thinking about it and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, it could be like years. Like, I know people that have not changed their lives in like 10 or 15, 20 years, and they're just stagnant. And you're right. It's like even tiniest actions, like, that's where you learn, you grow, you evolve, you get clarity, like you said. And you're right. It's like this sense of perfection. I always put perfection in quotes because there really is no such thing as perfection as we think of it, and it's crazy how much it holds people back, like in everything, including me. I'm not saying it's, trust me, I have it too, but, it's just, it's almost like crazy thinking. Like, why, do you know why we do this? Like you said, it's like the brain just likes to keep us feeling safe.
Yeah, it's trying to keep us safe. And it likes to think that it's like in charge. And it's because our brains think that they're in charge, and our brains think that or our ego, I say brain and ego kind of, or mind, like interchangeably, it's all the same thing. It thinks that it's running the show, and if it can only keep us safe. And really, it thinks that, and this is like, I'm kind of going a little extreme here, but it's true. It thinks that it can control like when we die.
Yeah.
If and when. And we all know that that's we all know it's going to happen. And that's kind of up to the universe, really, to know when that's going to happen. But our brain thinks that it knows. And if it can only hang on to whatever our experiences have shown it, then we'll be safe, and then we won't die, quite frankly. And the fear responses are the same. Like people, public speaking is one of them, or actually people are more afraid of that than death, ironically. But like people will, it triggers the same physiological response as something that could be life-threatening for real. Because our brains are like, no, death is here. And it's just not true. And to look at it from a different perspective. And that's why the observation part, the awareness, is really the key first step. Because without that, then you can't do any of these other things, and learn to like work with it, manage it, feel the fear, do it anyway. And things become easier. So you were saying before, like, when are we done? And we kind of never are. But it just gets easier. It's like, I know you're a big runner. It's like learning to run or something. Like for someone who's never done it, at first they're like, holy hell, this is like ridiculous. But then you just kind of, it doesn't become like super easy. Like your knee's still going to hurt, and like, whatever challenges are going to come up when you're running marathons. But you kind of embrace that almost, and you see it as a bigger thing, and you keep moving forward, and you can feel your body getting stronger, and you get those highs, and you keep going. And that's what it becomes.
I love it. I love that you mentioned this because, I've studied probably very much like you. It sounds like it, like a lot of neuroscience and, the brain and psychology. And, one of my favorite Buddhist teachers would always give this analogy, like the brain still thinks that we're being chased down by tigers, like our ancestors were. And it's true. It's like, it's always trying to keep us safe, even though there really is no such safety. There is no such thing. Like I wrote this in today's email about, there is no right time. Like you could wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait to put yourself out there, or launch your product or launch your business. And it's like, if you do it today versus like 8 years from now, like the only difference is 8 years from now, it's probably like, you're just going to regret it. It's probably too bad, and then you'll spend 8 years like wishing you had done it like I did. But it's true. It's like, there's that feeling of wanting to know, wanting to feel like this knowing security, but it's not real. And, if we can learn, right, to put it all aside and observe it and see it as just like, oh, that's what's limiting me. That's what's stopping me from having everything I want in life. Then we can actually just keep moving forward and like doing Facebook Lives when you hate being on video, or doing a 30-day Facebook Live challenge when you really hate being on. No, I'm kidding. Actually, someone I talked to recently was like, I need to start, she's a healer. I need to start telling people I do this. And I was like, yeah, like that's kind of the only way you can get clients is putting yourself out there. You have to tell people you offer it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, why don't you take up one of these challenges? Do like 30 days, like once a day, post something. It's like pushing yourself to that feeling of uncomfort so much that it actually becomes like really easy,
Mm-hmm. And it can also, by taking action, can often like dissolve the almost like nightmarish dream situation that our brains have made up, because they really like catastrophize. Is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
make it like a catastrophe or something.
Yeah.
So like if you're having a nightmare, you're like, all these things, or you think there's like a monster under the bed or whatever when you're a kid, and then you just kind of like turn on the light and look, and you're like, oh, everything's fine. Like our brains have this powerful imagination, which can help us dream and fantasize about awesome stuff we want in our lives, but it can also make us like really scared about something that's not real. And so with like Facebook Lives or whatever it is, somebody, is kind of like, I don't know about that. It's interesting. And this is actually day 10 for me being on Facebook Live, to just see like at the beginning where it's like, but what if? And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's dissolved into like such a little tiny thing already. I'm like, what's the big deal about Facebook Lives or whatever it is, putting yourself out there? Yeah, speaking on a stage, any of these things, like in reality, it's much smaller than what we made up in our brains.
Yeah, I tell people just, go speak on a beach wearing no clothes. And I was like, that was kind of like one of my introductions to public speaking. It was fun, But no, I'm just curious. So you mentioned, a lot of people have these deep limiting beliefs of like not being good enough, really holding ourselves back. Like, what do you find most people struggle with? Is it like making major life changes or career or relationships, or just like, is it all over the place?
Yeah, I'd say it's all of those things, depending on where they at. Maybe they have like a great career, but then no relationship, or they have a great relationship and family, but they're like, whatever happened to my career? Or sometimes it's people that have everything that they thought they always wanted, but they're not happy. And they're just like, what is missing here? Like on paper, I did all the things. I call it following the recipe to success and happiness. Where like, I went to school, I got married, I have a job, like blah, 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 house, dog, kids, car, whatever. And there's still something's missing. That's because they've been living externally for validation for things, and they don't know who they are or what they want.
Wow.
And sometimes people know, they're like, I just need to get clear on this. And that begins an inward journey. A lot of it is inward stuff, because we're dealing with this self-worth, getting to know ourselves, and then being able to trust in that and in our own, like I said at the beginning, where entrepreneurs, they have this idea of like, I want to be a whatever. And then immediately it's like, that's not good enough. That doesn't sound good enough. What are the words I need to use? Whatever. When really it is, but it's because they're a bit disconnected from trusting themselves and their own, really their own soul, actually. And so going inward and, tapping into that and building that trust and foundation, it makes it a lot easier to make decisions. So I talk to people who like struggle making decisions. And again, it's for the same reason, because they're like looking to be like, is this decision good? Like looking for feedback kind of in their environment, and it's never going to fulfill what we want it to. We're gonna be like, someone will give us validation, but then immediately our mind will snap in again and be like, well, that person doesn't like whatever. I need to hear it from this person or a bunch of people, or
it's crazy.
Whatever parent that never approved, it's all of these things, and it never ends unless we have it in ourselves. So that's why I really bring people back to like their deep knowing and to the core. So then there's a foundation, and from there you can do anything. When you have a solid foundation within yourself and you trust it, and there's an element of surrendering and letting go and like leaving it up to the universe, God, whatever. Like if you think of a time when something like you had the best day and it was so random, it's so fun because you're like, holy crap, I could never have planned it that way. Like that was totally just because I was in the flow and open and things are happening. And to live like that all the time is like super fun and takes the pressure off, because then you don't need to figure it all out first.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. I make jokes that my life is magic because it really almost every day is kind of like that, and it's crazy. I've
Uh-huh.
only been living in this new home for I don't know, like barely 2 weeks now, and every single day there's like magic happening, and it's just it's hilarious. I'm like, wow, this is so fun. Like there's synchronicities, it's magic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, are you still there? Uh-oh, it might have frozen. Let's see if
Oh,
Catherine is still on Facebook.
I'm still
I
here.
love technology. Here, let's
I'm
see.
I'm still here.
We are, I don't know if it's showing me live. If anyone is listening, just click. If